The Arkham games are no stranger to interchangeable suits, we both know that, but with a total of 51 suits spanning across all 4 Arkham games, it's obvious we got a lot to choose from. We've got movie suits, comic adaptations, and original creations from the team at Rocksteady. So in this video, I'll be ranking all 51 suits from the Arkham franchise. Forget any other video you've seen by any other creator because this is the definitive Arkham suit ranking. Little disclaimer before we start the video, everyone and their mom has already made an Arkham suit tier list type of video, so obviously there's nothing definitive about how I'll rank them. I just had to title the video that so you'd click on it. What, I'm just being honest. And more about being honest, I'm only going to be ranking the bat suits in the series, so the ninja suits in Arkham Origins won't be here, and the suits for the other playable characters besides Batman also won't be here. I don't know how long this video is going to be, so let's strap in, let's get it going. Starting with my personal favorite game in the series, Batman Arkham Asylum. Now this game only had 2 suits you could swap between, the original classic suit and the armored suit, but as far as the classic suit goes, I think it's up there with some of the most iconic looks for Batman regardless of the type of media he's coming from. Using the classic gray and dark blue color scheme, it just goes to show you that you truly don't have to mess with the formula much to get a result that can last a lifetime. The blue is dark enough to where in most lighting it looks black, and the sections of gray have added detail with the individual panels sectioning off his physique, and I'll touch on his physique in a moment. And one reoccurring theme you'll see in a lot of main suits for Batman is the use of the trunks on the outside of the pants. Truly, I've never been crazy about how it looks because I've always felt like in most adaptations, if they just left it off, it would still look fine, and honestly, it is a little goofy seeing a guy dress up like a bat wearing underwear on the outside of his pants. Aside from that though, the one thing I've always loved about this suit is the logo. As you can see, it features an additional gusset to the wings on the bat, making it stand out from any other logo you might see, making it immediately recognizable. But back to his physique, in most cases I think Batman generally looks the best when he's big, but not big enough to where he looks like he can't move and still be mobile. More along the lines of how Christian Bale looked when he played Batman, and honestly, it's the physique I'm trying to go for in my life personally. Now onto the topic of ear length. It sounds weird, I know, but it really is a big topic amongst the fans that really pay close attention to the design of our favorite hero. Are you a long ear warrior or a short ear defender? Me personally, I like both, and for me, it's not so much about the length of the ear, but more so about the shape of the ear. Yeah, that sounds odd. Anyway, there's been cases where the long ears work and cases where the short ears work, so truly, in my book, it doesn't really matter, but right here, I think the classic Arkham Asylum suit nails the long-eared look, and it really reminds me of how Tim Sale would illustrate Batman. Super long ears that really enhance the overall silhouette of Batman, and it really looks cool when it casts shadows. Overall, the suit is a classic rendition of our beloved Dark Knight and his best introduction into a series of games that will last a lifetime. I rank the classic Arkham Asylum suit a solid 9 out of 10. But now, on to the armored suit. Starting off with the things I like that he looks like Batman, I guess. As you can see, there's not many things that I particularly like about this suit because in its entirety, I think it's just a tad too busy. Busyness isn't always a bad thing, but if a suit's design is going to be busy, then it really has to flow well. In this, I just don't think it looks that great. Proportionally, it looks pretty off. There's a bunch of unnecessary random details and doodads all over the suit. The capsules on his belt are far too large in comparison to how they look regularly. And the fucking chin strap. I hate it. On just about every depiction of Batman where he has a chin strap, I always think it looks goofy. And unfortunately, this whole suit just looks rather goofy, and honestly, I'm not even really sure where they could have improved upon, and really, I think the suit looks far better in its concept form. So overall, I'll give it a 5 out of 10. It's not the worst thing in the world, but it's definitely not great. For the next installment in the Arkham series, it's obvious that Rocksteady didn't need to reinvent the wheel, so overall the flagship suit for Arkham City truly isn't much different than the one in Arkham Asylum. Aside from the slight changes to his belt, boots, and gauntlets, the only real notable difference here is the simplified bat logo, and at this point in time, it's really an iconic logo for the Arkham series. But like I said, they really didn't need to reinvent the wheel, as Arkham City only takes place just a few months after the breakout at the asylum, so it makes sense as to why his suit barely changed, and because of that, I'll give this suit another solid 9 out of 10. With Arkham City being the first installment in the series to feature a multitude of interchangeable suits, Rocksteady started to delve deeper into the suits that most players would have wanted to choose between. So, let's run down the list starting with the animated series suit. Now, believe it or not, the suit isn't really my favorite, but that's not because I don't like the classic animated series suit, because trust me, I do. But I just think not everything totally translates well, going from a 2-dimensional medium to a 3D one. And as you might have noticed, because of how truly artistic the design for Batman is in the animated series, His look will vary from shot to shot, and what made Batman look so good in the animated series was his eyes. They were always so animated and emissive, and they always told how the Dark Knight was feeling without him ever having to say a word. But in addition to that, the colors on his suit were portrayed much differently in the show. Because of it being an animation, the blue sections on his suit were always black with the highlights being blue to show a higher level of depth and detail to those portions, but on the suit in the game, it's really just a very boring shade of navy blue. Not saying that's a bad thing, but it's just one of the many reasons why the art style in the animated series didn't totally translate well into a 3D model. And because of that, I'll give this suit a 6.5 out of 10. It's not bad, but like I said, it's definitely not my favorite. But now moving on to the Dark Knight Returns suit. Now this is one of the cases where Batman being on the bulkier side actually works, because in the graphic novel, that's exactly how Batman would have looked going into his mid-50s. Stylistically though, I think I like the colors on this suit a tad more than the previous one just because I like the whole gray and black over the gray and blue color scheme. But overall, the suit has a very matte finish overall, and that doesn't mean I want him to be covered in a super shiny latex material. But I think the way he's portrayed in some panels in the novel, it looks like his suit is more of a shiny satin silk-like material instead of just a flat fabric. And honestly, the same goes for the animated series suit. They both would have looked a lot better if the black and blue sections were made to be that shiny satin material. But besides that, I've never really been a fan of the super chunky and blocky Bat logo, but my personal bias aside, I think it fits just how chunky Batman looks here. So with all that in mind, I'll give this suit a 6 out of 10. It does pretty well at portraying the overall look for Batman in The Dark Knight Returns, but to me, it's fairly middle of the road. But now moving on to the Batman Year 1 suit. First off, I want to like this suit. I really do. It's got the black and gray color scheme, which I like. It has a more traditional style Bat logo, and overall, it really reminds me of how Alex Ross tends to illustrate Batman. Super simple in design overall, but what I think takes away from the suit here is the very beady eyes and the gray belt. I'm not sure if they were trying to go for the way he was colored in the comic, but I think going with the regular yellow belt would have been a better look. And about the eyes, I just think they're too beady, and if you look at them long enough, he'll just kind of look into your soul. Empty, devoid of life. Anyway, yeah, I think the angular design for his eyes looks far better than his entire eyeball just being white. And the last thing that I'm not particularly fond of on the suit is his face. I just kind of think he's ugly, and unfortunately, it seems to be a common theme in the Arkham games. And you know, I'm not into dudes, but I don't think any of the 4 face models they use in the Arkham cities look particularly great. And especially not this one, because he has a butt chin, and I don't like that. But besides all that, I do like the suit. It really is just classic Batman, short ears and all. So I'll give this suit a 6 out of 10. It probably would have been an 8 or 9 if he had a yellow belt, and if he wasn't so damn hard to look at. Ugh. But next up is the Earth 1 suit. I'm not too familiar with the Earth 1 story, but just from the suit alone, it's decent. I don't think the suit stands out in any particular way besides from the fact that the Bat logo is connected to the cape and cowl, but other than that, I don't think I really care much for the suit. I don't have a personal connection to the suit, and design-wise, it's pretty run-of-the-mill when it comes to a bad suit, which isn't always a bad thing, but because of all that, I'd probably have to give this suit a 5 out of 10. It's not horrible, but it's really not amazing either. But now, onto the Batman Beyond suit. Like I mentioned previously, not everything translates well going from a 2D animation to a 3D render, but this is definitely on the better side of that spectrum. Overall, I think the suit looks pretty good, as an all-black leotard probably wouldn't have looked the greatest here, but one minor complaint I have is just how muscular he is. In the show, I always thought of Terry McGinnis to be on the slimmer side instead of the larger physique he takes on here, and maybe this could be Bruce in the suit instead of Terry, but still. I think the overall silhouette looks better if whoever is in the suit is on the leaner side. One thing I've always loved about the suit is the logo and just how angular and bold it is compared to the regular bat symbol. But really, there's not much more to say about it. It's a futuristic, high-tech bat suit for a new age Batman. I'll give this suit a solid 8 out of 10. But now, onto the 1970s bat suit. Off rip, I love this suit. There's a lot of classic looks for Batman, and this being one of them, it really brings me back to my childhood when I would see Scott Johnson's illustrations of Batman on different products, especially soap, and I don't really know why I would always associate this art style with soap, but anyway. I know the suit harkens back to when Neil Adams illustrated him back in the 70s, and I think it mirrors it almost perfectly. The blue is a perfect shade of blue, and he's got the long ears and the yellow bat logo. And you know, when you ask people that grew up in the 70s reading comics to envision their definitive Batman, I'd say 9 times out of 10, this is exactly what they're seeing in their mind. And because of that, I'll give this suit a 9 out of 10. This is Batman. But now moving on to the Batman Incorporated suit. You've got the standard black and gray color scheme, which I like. You've also got the giant 89 style bat logo, which I also like. And you can't forget the titanium plate. There's really not much else going on for the suit except for that, along with the added armor to his gauntlets and boots. So in the end, I'll give this suit a pretty fair 7.5 out of 10. And lastly for Arkham City is the Sinestro Corps suit. Now I'm extremely biased towards this suit because I'm a really big fan of Green Lantern and his entire mythos. And if you know anything about how the emotional spectrum works, you know that the ring only chooses you if you have the ability to instill great fear, which Batman does with flying colors. So to see Batman wielding a yellow lantern ring, it just makes sense. Although from a visual standpoint, I'm not exactly sure why they made the yellow sections dirty. Maybe to blend into the world of Arkham a bit more, I don't know. But this suit is great, Green Lantern is great, and Batman using a yellow power ring is great. So I'll give this suit a solid 8 out of 10. The only thing that would have made it better is if his eyes were glowing or something, and if they made the ears longer. Wrapping it up for the suits in Arkham City, there were some hits, some misses, but overall the standouts to me were the 1970s suit, the Sinestro Corps suit, and the Batman Beyond suit, obviously all aside from the original suit. But honestly, I think Rocksteady really missed out on some more iconic alternate suits for the Dark Knight. So in the next installment, they were sure to not disappoint as they gave us a total of 15 additional suits instead of just 8 in Arkham City. So here, we start off with the default Arkham Origins suit. I like the way the suit looks, but I always felt it was far too bulky compared to the suits in the previous games. And as this game takes place years before Asylum, you'd think that he'd be starting with a more cloth-based suit and then upgrade to a more armored suit to take on some more punishment, but I guess not. It's got armor plating and padding overall, which really adds to his size, yet takes away from his natural physique. And while overall, I don't really think it's what he would have chose to wear as his primary suit in his early days, but still, it gets the job done. And for that, I'll give it a very specific 7.8 out of 10. It's damn good and it works for how muted the color palette is in the game, but like I said, it's just a tad too bulky for my liking. Next up is the Extreme Environment suit. I love this suit, I can't even lie to you. It's even bulkier than the original suit, but it actually works here because of the extremely low temperatures he has to work in. And honestly, I think it's what heavily armored Batsuit should aim after. To the way it's introduced in the story, to the glowing thermal panels and the guard over his face, this suit just really does it for me. 8.5 out of 10. It's honestly better than the original suit in my opinion. But next up is the Blackest Night suit. Like I said for the Sinestro Corps suit in Arkham City, I'm pretty biased when it comes to Green Lantern related things, and as soon as you involve Batman, I'm signing up. To me, it translates really well, going from the pages of a comic to a 3D render in-game. So for them to add a Black Lantern zombie Batman, once again, it really just does it for me. And on top of that, Blackest Night is one of my favorite stories in all of fiction, so it's hard for me to rate this suit any lower than an 8 out of 10. The idea of a Black Lantern Batman is very cool indeed. And adding on to my love for Green Lantern is this suit's counterpart, the White Lantern suit. Now it kind of falls short, as I like when the bat logo was integrated with the lantern symbol on the previous suit, yet it's not like that here. It's accurate to the comic, but I just think it would have looked better if the bat was integrated. I also think it would have been cool if they gave him some glowing white eyes like they did with the Black Lantern suit. It's a cool suit, but it falls just a tad short to me. 7 out of 10. And now onto the Nightfall suit. This suit is extra in so many ways, but honestly, it works. Obviously, it's from the Nightfall run back in the early 90s, and back then it was a popular trend to have super exaggerated costumes with random pouches everywhere. And spikes. You can't forget about adding spikes. Even though I wouldn't technically consider this to be a true Batsuit, I still think it looks pretty damn cool. It's got glowing eyes and a shit ton of lights on it, so for that, I'll give it a 7.3 out of 10. But now moving on to the Long Halloween suit. Similar to the Year 1 suit in Arkham City, I really want to like this suit, okay? While it may not be for everyone, I think Tim Sale's art style for the Long Halloween is just fantastic. A lot of the time, his illustrations of these characters will look super odd and exaggerated, but honestly, I think that's what makes them look really cool. And on top of that, in his artwork, they'd always have very pastel colors that came off as very striking and bold, even though each individual color is muted in itself. And I say all that to say that this is yet another case where a suit doesn't exactly translate the best going from one medium to another. But besides all that, I'm also not the biggest fan of the straight cut trunks. A small detail I know, but if you're gonna put the trunks on the outside of his pants, then you gotta have them shaped more like underwear because they kinda stick out like a sore thumb here. But one thing I think the suit does well is portraying his overall physique. Taking another look at how he used to be illustrated, it's clear to see that he's pretty fucking massive with a lot of detail and definition in his muscles. And it's one thing that did actually carry over to the in-game render, and I want to like this suit just because of how stylistically it's drawn in the comic, but I'll have to give it a fair 6.5 out of 10. It's just one of those suits where it only looks good where it originally came from. And now onto the Red Sun suit. I think it looks good for what it is, but obviously it's just a little dated, and I think what's so important about a good Batsuit is if it can stand the test of time. Usually the more contemporary design is, the worse it looks after a period of time, just because of how much they were influenced by the current time, and that speaks volumes for the suit in particular. Set in the 1950s, this is essentially an evil take on Batman if he was Russian, and because of the influence of popular Russian clothing of the time, it just doesn't really tickle my fancy. I think it has an interesting bat logo, but that's just about it. A 6 out of 10 is what I will give this suit. Now real quick, I want to just talk about some of the themes that can really ruin the way a suit looks on Batman. It's clear as day that the Dark Knight is a very serious person, so to reflect that, it's one of the reasons why he almost exclusively looks better in darker colors, and it's one of the reasons why he looks as menacing as he does. But menacing is not what these suits look like. First in this goofy trio is the Gotham by Gaslight suit. Evidently, Batman is a very tech-based character, but even when you forget that aspect about him, he looks like this and not this. And as I said previously, sometimes when you have a suit set in a certain time period, it can look extremely dated, and obviously, that's what's happening here. And you might be saying, Gibson, isn't that the point? Yes, it's the point, but he still looks goofy. Like, honestly, you can't tell me that you think this guy is supposed to strike fear into the hearts of criminals. Now maybe that's not the point because the storyline the suit comes from takes place back in the 1800s, but I still can't get over the fact of how silly he looks. I will give the Gotham by Gaslight suit a 4 out of 10, but continuing the campiness is the Adam West Batman suit. Of course I have to pay my respect to Adam West and what he provided for this character, but all that aside, yet again we have another goofy looking Batman suit. But in the realm of goofy looking Batsuits, this one definitely falls on the better half of that scale, just for the simple fact that it's Adam West, man. From the super cartoonish logo to the satin blue cape and cowl, this suit really has changed the lives of so many people, and because of that and that alone, I will give this suit an infinity out of 10. Does it make sense? No, not really, but not everything has to, and this is my video, not yours, so if you have a problem with it, you can tell me in the comments how you feel. I'd love for you to point out each and every single way you disagree with me. But, moving on to the final suit out of this goofy trio, is the first appearance suit. This suit, no, you can't even really call it a suit. This costume is so unserious, and we talked about how serious Batman is, so from a visual standpoint, this costume just isn't very good, but honestly, it makes sense. You know, for most people in life, you can't really know everything you do first try, well, unless you're me, but you're not, so this right here, it set the precedent for who we know this character to be. Our watchful protector, our Cape Crusader, and our Dark Knight. It didn't start out perfectly, but it set the blueprint for how every single Batsuit over the past 80 years is supposed to look like. Now that doesn't mean I like the way the suit looks, but I can appreciate what it's done for every single iteration of our favorite character since. So for that, I'll give it an 11 out of 10, as a thank you for it even existing, but visually, it's more like a 3 out of 10. Moving on, the New 52 suit. It looks like I have to start repeating myself, because once again, the suit falls victim to only really looking good when it's drawn in the comics. With the amount of random lines this suit has, you can see just how muddy it makes the entirety of the suit look. And you know, with this one, I really want to like it because I remember when they first introduced the New 52, and to me, I thought the redesign for the entire Justice League to look more modern was really cool. Now granted, I was a kid at the time, but even still to this day, I think it looks pretty damn cool, but only when it's drawn. Apart from that and the gray sections being far too dark, the suit isn't terrible, but for the reasons I mentioned before, I'll have to give this suit a 6 out of 10. I want to like it, but I just can't. But now moving on to the Injustice Gods Among Us suit. Great game, but the character designs in it, I'm not really the biggest fan of. But talking about just Batman here, the suit falls victim to just looking too bulky and cumbersome, but you've already heard me go on about how a bulkier suit can make him look bad. But bro, besides from all that, this suit is just kind of boring. To my eyes, it's kind of just another basic armored batsuit, and obviously it's not a bad thing for a suit just to be an armored batsuit, but it's really got to stand out and be bold and be unique. But this suit, to me, it just doesn't really do that. 4 out of 10. Just not really a fan of it. But now, onto the Noel suit. I only barely remember the storyline this suit came from, but all I do remember is that Batman was a little messed up in the head. Well, more than he already is. But visually, the suit is alright. I like how the bat logo was integrated into the cape and cowl, and honestly, more bat suits need to feature that because I've always loved how he can pull the cowl over his head like a hood, but I guess that only really works well in comics and animation. Anyway, I'm gonna go ahead and say this suit is pretty mediocre, so I'll give it a matching score. 5 out of 10. This suit is the definition of decent. But now moving on to the Batman 1 million suit. Bro, this suit is so much cooler in the comic it came from. I really must sound like a broken record at this point, but bro, look at this. Look at how chrome-like the finish is and the super big chest piece that almost acts like shoulder pads in the bat logo. Look at how his cape literally engulfs his entire body coming from the front of his shoulders. And now look at this. You tell me which one you prefer. Honestly though, I think I said enough to where you could probably guess how I feel about the suit. Disappointing. 5 out of 10. You could be so much cooler. Now to the Dark Knights of the Round Table suit. I'll be honest, I was gonna lead with saying this suit is goofy looking, this suit is dated, and it is, but honestly seeing Batman wearing this while riding a horse is pretty crazy, and it sounds pretty fucking dope to me. And taking a look at the issues of the Dark Knights of the Round Table, you can definitely tell this came straight from the 90s with how angular and edgy they made his suit. But then again, it makes sense because he's literally supposed to be a medieval knight in armor. The idea is cool, I like the play on words, but obviously it's not a suit that speaks to me personally. But stylistically, I can say it's pretty cool. A 7.1 out of 10 is what I will give this suit. And now onto the Thrill Killer suit. I do not like this suit. The bat logo is this very strange shade of yellowish orange, my least favorite color by the way. His gauntlets and boots extend a lot further than they should, very BDSM to me, and a fucking chin strap, bro. Not a fan. And besides from the suit itself, it came from a very odd storyline anyway, so this suit kinda had it coming. I'm thinking like 3 out of 10. Yeah, it's not great to say the least. But now, onto the final 2 suits for Arkham Origins, and I'm going to group them together because they're both from the same Earth 2 storyline, but starting with the Bruce Wayne Earth 2 suit. To be honest with you, I'm not even really sure why they included this suit into the game, as I don't believe the Earth 2 Batman was truly all that popular. His story in the comics didn't last that long, so I'm not quite sure exactly what the appeal was for putting him in the game. Looks wise, the suit is primarily gray and black with these very strange looking straps that go over the front of him. And you know, I'm not sure whether it's supposed to add on to the bat logo or cover it up entirely, and like a lot of the other bat suits in the game, it's just a little needlessly busy. Not really a fan of the random straps on his legs, and I'm not really a fan of the suit as a whole. I'm gonna give this suit a solid 3 out of 10, but now onto the actually cool Earth 2 suit. Now, as you might have guessed with the red eyes, this is actually Thomas Wayne from Earth 2. I know the whole 2 Batmans and Earth 2 gets kind of confusing, but stay with me here. This being Thomas Wayne adopting the Batman persona, he leans into a very different color palette than your typical Batman, with the hints of red all over the suit. With the red accents, it might be a tad on the nose, showing that this Batman is a little more lethal than usual, but it still looks pretty cool. The only real gripes I have with the suit is the sort of random triangle on his chest. Maybe it's there to give the bat logo a bit more of a chance to stand out, but if that's the case, they could have just added some more outlines to the logo to make it stand out a little bit better. But besides that, I can confidently say I like this suit. I'm not over the moon for it, but you know, I like it. 7 out of 10. As a whole, Arkham Origins definitely delved further into some more iconic looks Batman has had over the years, especially with heavy hitters like the Blackest Night suit, the Nightfall suit, and the Earth 2 suit. So it's pretty safe to say that they definitely surpassed Arkham City's DLC suits, although I'm not sure why all the previous suits weren't carried over to this game. But speaking about being carried over, it's one thing the developers were sure to do with the next game. Batman Arkham Knight.
"9 months ago, Joker was cremated. I pressed the button and burnt the evil bastard myself. This is how it happened. This is how the Batman died."
Starting off with the first suit is the post-Arkham City version 7.43 suit. Taking a brief glance at the suit and from the subtitle in the game, it really is just an updated and modernized Arkham City suit, which is already off to a good start. The only changes we see is some more armor plating on the gray sections, and the bat logo is sort of split up into multiple pieces so that when he moves, it articulates with his movement. Very nice touch. And in super close up and specific lighting, the suit actually still retains the gray and blue color scheme, although the blue is so dark to where it may as well be considered black, but in my book, it looks great either way. But really, what more is there to say about this suit? When we first laid eyes on it in the iconic intro for Arkham Knight when he leaps off the building to call the Batmobile, it's just damn near perfect. In comparison to the Arkham City suit, I think I prefer that one just a little bit more than this one just because of how much more simple it is, but still, this suit is great, and because of that, I'll rate it a very solid 8.7 out of 10. We're off to a great start. But remember how I said there's a lot of suits carried over from the previous game? Yeah, let's go ahead and knock those out rapid fire style. The new 52 suit. It looks better because the gray sections are lighter here, but still, it looks better when it's drawn. 6.4 out of 10. The Batman Incorporated suit. I actually think it looks a little bit better here just because of the higher resolution textures, but besides that, my thoughts are still the same. It's a pretty cool suit. 7.8 out of 10. The Noel suit. It still looks weird, but it doesn't really offend my eyes. 5.2 out of 10. And now we're back in blue with the 1970 suit. If you look closely, they changed the shade of blue and it doesn't really look bad, but honestly, I prefer the shade of blue that they use in Arkham City as it's a little bit closer to how the suit looks in the comics. Another thing I noticed, you can see his veins popping out of his biceps, and I get it, he's buff, but I think the lower graphical quality of Arkham City made the suit look just a little bit better than it does here. 8.8 out of 10. Not as good, but it's still a great looking suit. The Dark Knight Returns suit. For some reason, they changed the logo to be more rectangular, and as I said, I'm not really a fan of that. It's also missing the Y eyes on the 70s suit, but with that, for some reason, I didn't really mind it, but with this, I feel like it kind of takes away from the very comic book nature of the suit. Beyond that though, the suit just ain't really my favorite, but for the simple fact that the Bat logo looks marginally worse here, I will rate it a 4.8 out of 10. Now onto this goofy suit. You know, this applies to the Arkham Origins version as well. I wonder why they decided to make the cape micro size when looking at the comics it definitely wasn't that size at all. And like with the 1970 suit, they also changed the belt to be leather instead of all yellow. It looks cool, but we both know what would look cooler. But dude, you know how I feel about this suit, and you know, I'm not even gonna rate it. You tell me what you think of this suit. Leave it down in the comments below and tell me what you think. But back to our Rocksteady original suit is the Arkham Origins suit. First off, the color is very clearly a lot darker here than it is in Origins, and it definitely looks a lot better there than it does here. The lighter color really makes the black on the Bat logo pop, so yeah, it definitely looks better there, and you know, in this game, I think the suit's bulkiness is coming through even more than it was in Origins. Like, you just look at the suit and you can see how extremely massive it is, and as I said previously, it's big and bulky, but it's still fairly cool overall. But because of it being darker, I'll give it a 7.5 out of 10. But now we're back to where things first started with the Arkham Asylum suit. This is the quintessential Arkham suit, no question, but how it looks here in Arkham Knight, I feel like it looks miles better in Arkham Asylum. I don't know if it's just me, but the blue looks ever so slightly too bright here, and I'm not sure if it's just a lighting thing, but all I know is I notice it, and therefore it looks slightly strange to me. But in addition to that, you can tell that the suit is truly meant for Arkham Asylum just because of how much better the face model looks while it's in the cowl compared to how it looks here. But my personal gripes aside, I think it looks almost just as good as it always did. 8.7 out of 10. And now we're back to the new suits for Arkham Knight. All clad in black, here is the 1989 Keaton suit, and you know, the look of the suit will always stand the test of time. Ditching the gray and blue or even the gray and black color scheme, this suit blends in perfectly with the Knight like Batman always should be. Although one thing I will say is that I much preferred the Batman Returns logo compared to this one, but besides that, this suit is iconic, man. So because of that, rating it any less than an 8.7 out of 10 would be sacrilegious. Next up is the Flashpoint suit. Now I already like the previous Thomas Wayne suit, but if we're talking about the Flashpoint bat suit, it just takes it to a whole new level. And you know, I think the suit almost nails the whole over-design trend without being too over-designed, just perfectly designed. It turned the cape pauldrons into actual shoulder pads while still retaining the overall silhouette of Flashpoint Batman. He has the red straps on his legs that leads to the holsters for his guns, and while you're not able to use them in game, I'm still glad that they added them to the suit just for that visual appeal. Only slight gripe I have with the suit is that the Bat logo is just a tad small, because if you look at the Flashpoint Batman suit in the comics, the logo is definitely a lot bigger and more pronounced than it is here. But in the end, the suit really just does it for me. It's got the red eyes, it's got the massive fucking pauldrons, it's got the guns. What more could you want, man? 8.5 out of 10. This suit does an almost perfect job at modernizing a Flashpoint Batman with the whole military element. But now onto the Batman Beyond suit. Obviously, this isn't an exact representation of the Batman Beyond suit as it took the whole over-design thing to the maximum, but even still, I actually kind of like it. This suit is extremely busy all over with lots of design literally everywhere you look, and you know, Not all suits can get away with the whole over-design thing, but I think that this is one suit that definitely gets away with it, and pretty well at that. Only real complaints that I have is that the gauntlets are bigger than his biceps, so it's kind of giving off the whole Popeye effect where your forearms are bigger than your biceps, and I think that could have made the cowl actually conform to his face instead of just having a cover over it. Regardless though, the suit looks pretty cool no matter how you look at it. And for that, I will rate it a solid 8 out of 10. Moving on to the iconic gray and black suit. You know, apparently this is supposed to be when Dick Grayson took up the role as Batman, even though the suit looks quite a bit different than it did in the comics. But beyond all that, this suit really has just one thing wrong with it. It is just so goddamn tight on this man, bro. I mean, like, you can see the elephant in the room, like, you can see the outline of his belly button, bro, and that makes me feel weird. But besides the belly button feature, as it says in the title, this is the iconic gray and black suit, so there's not really much to mess up here. It's got a rather futuristic looking belt that I'm not totally a fan of, and the gauntlets only have 2 blades instead of just 1. It's nitpicky, I know, but it still looks kinda odd. This suit has a lot going for it, as it's literally the classic gray and black suit, but because of it being so damn tight, I'll rate it a 7 out of 10. And now onto the Batman v Superman suit. I grew up with Christian Bale being the only live action Batman, so to go from a very slim frame to a very hulking and muscular one was a big change for me. But for the suit itself, I never liked the Bat logo and how squared off and large it was. I never liked the super short ears, and you know, it's not like I don't like short ears, but it's almost like they're too stumpy and wide, making it look just a little off. And when you compare the suit to the one in Justice League, I think I kind of prefer how tactical that one is compared to this one. Overall, it's not bad, as I like the gold accents and the gray and black color scheme, but honestly, I'm just not really crazy for it. I'll give this suit a 6.7 out of 10. But speaking about Christian Bale, here is the Dark Knight movie suit. Now I've heard a lot of complaints from other people online about this suit, and I'm gonna need y'all to cut it out. This suit may not look the greatest, but it's nostalgic, man. Like, as a kid growing up with that movie, it just did a lot for me, but in this instance, I will try to remove my rose-tinted glasses. It's obvious that this is a very tactical suit with quite a lot of oddly shaped armor plating, but I think that the fact that it's all black kind of hides that, but bro, I'm gonna cut the bullshit. I like this suit. Why? I don't know, just because I like it. And I don't care what you say to me. 8 out of 10. But now, onto the anime bat suit. For those that don't know, and I actually forgot where it came from too, but this suit is actually from the animated movie Batman Gotham Knight, and for those that haven't seen it, it featured 5 aspects and individual sections on what it means to be Batman, and in one of those sections, he used this suit. And, you know, from just that, I really enjoyed the journey it takes you on to show you how Batman came to be, but that definitely doesn't mean I like this suit. He's got an extended collar that wraps around his neck with the cape and bat logo connecting to that, single blades on his gauntlets, and this sort of shark-like nose design. While I can appreciate how different the suit looks in its own right, I'm still not the biggest fan of it, just because of how odd it looks, and for that, I'll give it a 5 out of 10. But if you haven't seen it yet, go watch Batman Gotham Knight. It's not like it'll change your life or anything, but it's a good watch and it's an entertaining movie. Moving on to the Zero-Nar suit. It looks like the perfect suit for a Happy Meal toy. Like, if you got this in your Happy Meal as a kid, I know you'd be excited, but Happy Meals aside, this suit obviously has some very bold colors going on, but it makes sense for this specific Batman, as he's just a little cuckoo in the head. Overall though, I'm just not really a fan of this suit and how odd it looks, and for that, I'll give it a 4 out of 10. But now, onto the Batman suit. Now, truth be told, I actually didn't like this suit when it first got revealed. I just thought it looked way too militaristic, and as you can see on his neck, it has sort of the separated collar thing going on. The shape of the cowl is kind of weird to me, and a lot of his face is exposed on the side, but bro, after watching that movie, I can confidently say I like this suit. I don't love it, but I do like it. It kind of took the whole practicality thing to a whole new level, and seeing as the world this suit came from is a very grounded and realistic one, it only really makes sense. I only just wish that it screamed more Batman to me, because every time I look at the suit, I always notice the missing details from what defines a Batman suit, you know? It's gotta have a clear cut and defined bat logo, it's gotta have 3 blades on the gauntlets, and the cape has to have the shape of a bat, which it's all kinda missing here. But beyond all that though, the suit looks good, and it fits Robert Pattinson perfectly. I'll give this suit a pretty fair 7.8 out of 10. It ain't my favorite, but it fits perfectly for the movie it came from. But moving on to the Justice League 3000 suit. You know, it's funny, I almost didn't include this suit just because it's a PlayStation exclusive, but just from the looks alone, it's cool, I can't lie. and it's cool in the same way the Batman Beyond suit is cool. It's futuristic, it's pretty well armored, and they both use black and red color palettes, although I can definitely say it looks better the more sparingly you use the red accents. The Bat-Symbol is super big, but honestly too big to where you can't even really distinctly tell that this is Batman. Besides that though, I do like the shaping of the armor on his back because it actually forms the head of a bat. The more you know. The cowl design is alright. I don't really like the shape of the ears, and like I said before, it ain't about the size, it's about the shape. Overall, I think the suit looks cool, but by now you could probably tell that it's not really up my alley with how far out the design is, quite literally, and for that, I'll give it a 7 out of 10. It's good, but it's okay. Now, as you might have noticed, I've been saving one suit for last, and that's because of how special it is to me. Last but certainly not least is the version 8.04 suit, the flagship suit for Batman Arkham Knight. Now I really wanted to save this suit for last and really give it some flowers because this game and this suit will forever hold a special place in my heart. One, because the game came out a day before my birthday. Two, it's the last time we got to see Arkham Batman in his true form, you know, setting aside all the bullshit that came with Suicide Squad. And thirdly, it just looks perfect to me. Now some may say the suit is over-designed, and sure, that may be the case, but I truly believe that it works in this scenario as it's Batman at his peak throughout all 4 games. I mean, to think that this man had to put away every single loose criminal in Gotham City and have a psychological battle for his sanity in the span of about 12 hours is insane, and it really goes to show you just how protective this suit really is. But narrowing in on the details of the suit, going from top to bottom, it features the long ears, but they're integrated and shaped into the cowl in such an aggressive and bold way, it really just adds to his overall silhouette. And I love the animation the cowl does anytime it takes it off, just showing how truly technologically advanced the suit is. Moving a little lower to the shoulder and chest area, I really like how the main chest piece connects to the shoulder pads with these elastic straps, and from a design standpoint, it's actually a callback to the same feature on the Arkham Origin suit. But dude, just look at the Bat logo, it really does just look perfect. I like it so much because of how it really moves with his body and shows how articulate and mobile he can be while still wearing a full suit of armor. As far as the underbody suit goes, I think it has a great mix of textures and different types of materials, with some sections integrating a honeycomb pattern to it, some sections are overlapping each other to show depth to the individual layers, and some sections are differently colored than others to show variation in the color palette. But real quick, let's take a second to appreciate how advanced this suit really is. It has a comms device on his gauntlet, so you could literally FaceTime Alfred while you're out in the field. And while just about all of it is kind of unnecessary, the scene where he puts on the suit for the first time is just legendary. To see all the inner workings of how the different pieces on the suit move and articulate is just so cool. Like, you can't look me in the eye and tell me that this isn't cool. And just how technologically advanced the suit is works well into the story. Like, first off, it's introduced with the fear mechanic and it's able to compress around a bullet wound that's taken while the gun's literally being pushed into you. And you know, at the end of the day, I think this suit just encapsulates everything it means to be Batman. You have to be quick and mobile, you have to be able to take a hit and give back 10, you have to blend in with the night, and most importantly, you have to scare the shit out of criminals. So for all the reasons I mentioned, I will give this suit a stellar, perfect, nothing more you can add or change, 10 out of 10. There is nothing anybody can say or do to convince me that this suit isn't the definition of perfect. And really, this suit will forever mean everything to me. Now, besides the alternate versions for the 8.04 suit, because they're literally just the same suit with just one having battle damage and one having a gold bat logo, this has been the definitive Arkham suit ranking. 51 suits spanning 4 games over the last 15 years, and yes, it's really been that long. And speaking about things being long, pause, that was a pretty long video, and by now, if you couldn't tell already, these videos are from 2024 when I used to post them on my main channel, and you know, I figured, you know, they're still good videos and they still hold up for the most part. I may as well post them here, but unfortunately that whole thing has come to an end with this video because after I made this video in 2024, I stopped making Batman videos. But that's for the main channel, and this is the second channel where Batman videos aren't the only thing that'll be posted here. And since I've got no more Batman videos in the tank to post, it's time to switch it up. So next week, come to expect a very different type of video to be posted, but until then, I thank you for watching. I'm Gibson, and this is the Spaceboy channel.